the power to hire and fire. The voters card gives them, makes them the office of the CEO of the country. Unfortunately, they don't know that. And you know, the challenge we have also in that is that you have security agents at the polling units who are not doing anything. So you have a situation whereby something happens, you go to the security agent and they say it is a presiding officer who is presiding over elections and busy, that should come to them and say, oh, there is something that is happening before they can take action. And so until we get to a situation whereby the security agents begin to treat crime on election day as they treat crime on other days, then perhaps we can see a change. We need the security agent to take lead in this area. For instance, in the polling unit, I said that St. Stephen's Anglican Primary School today, immediately the DSS came there and they saw this man, they arrested the man. They didn't have to wait for the presiding officer to come because it happened outside the gate of that particular polling unit. The DSS arrested this man and took him away. But if there was a reversal where somebody had noticed this man and you are saying, please, this is a crime that has happened, then nothing definitely will happen. So we need citizens to realize that their votes are inestimable. You cannot buy it. They have to take charge and be able to take that responsibility for themselves. But we also need to get the security agents to do what they're supposed to do and arrest a criminal situation when they see that, irrespective of the fact that the presiding officer has not come out to tell them that this is a crime going on, because he or she may not even know that is going on, because the presiding officer is concentrating on ensuring that the BVAS is working, people are accredited properly, and people vote properly.
Faith, I'd like to thank you for your contribution at this point. Let's come back into the studio in Abuja. I'm still sure we're going to reconnect with you in the next few minutes to still have your views on some of these emerging issues as we await some collation of the 2024 Ondo State governorship election.
Thank you.
Yes, back here, David and Jide, lots of issues raised by our Faith there in terms of our observation. But I'd like to start. What we're trying not to focus much on the vote buying issue. Rather, I want us to look at how we can find a way of, possibly reducing it to the barest minimum. How do you react to a situation where, in some places, people were involved in the vote buying process? And she just rightly mentioned that in some polling units, people totally objected it. Now, we're having different people, mixed reactions to this particular thing, but it is often said, if there are no sellers, there won't be buyers.
Yeah, that's true. But please, let's always put context to our assertions. I maintain that our characterization of electoral infractions and flaws should be, we should be very mindful of how we characterize. All the observer reports I've read are talking of isolated evidential incidences of vote buying. Because even if you charge these people to court, you must provide evidence. I'm not going to deny that there are incidences of vote buying. The question is, how widespread is it? Can we use 310 instances to characterize the entire process as having been marred by vote buying? That is what we need to be very careful about. If there are no buyer, there will be no seller. Why will politicians buy vote? They do because they have not performed. If you are seeking re-election and you have done well, people will not even buy votes to upstage you. But what we have seen is that there is excruciating hunger, excruciating rising cost of living, which has made many people to go into debt. And for many people in rural communities, 20,000, 10,000, 5,000 is a lot of money. But I wouldn't imagine you, if you were to be a voter in Ondo, to collect money because you want to cast your ballot, because of your level of enlightenment or education. So it's always a mixed bag. It's always a potpourri. There are those who will offer themselves. There are those who will make demand from politicians for them to be given money. And there are those who will not make demand but will be offered. There are those who will resist. There are those who will take. It's like bribe of any sort. Many of us will condemn vote buying. But when we break traffic rule, we are quick to offer road safety officials bribe to allow us escape. Is that not so? So how different is that? You want to play holy. Oh, I don't sell my vote. But you don't have driving license, or you have a vehicle that doesn't have vehicle papers, and you are applying the road. The moment they stop you, you won't even allow them to ask you for your papers before you start saying, "Oga, let me see you." So it's a cultural thing. It has become part of, it's like, and I think it's not one size fits all in our analysis of what issues around voter inducement and vote buying is. Because unless we are able to take sufficient sample of incidences of this nature, many reports will just flag, maybe in the entire report, maybe about 10, 5, 3 incidences. And when you index that kind of report, can you go to court on that basis to say the incident was widespread? Because you are going to be shown the data, 3,933 polling units. You are bringing evidence or laying claim that there were vote buying in A, B, and C. What about D to Z? So it's when you interrogate this thing, you need to be very circumspect in characterizing the entire electoral process as having been flawed by vote buying or whatever. Because even in our laws are not based on, oratorial allegations. You must provide evidence. There must be witnesses. So how many arrests have been made? You talk about DSS apprehending one individual, but I will flag the fact that in the instances that have been cited, there are also indictments of the police that they look the other way in places where some of these exchanges were going on. And historically, our research has shown that in many places where there are vote buying, police are even the primary beneficiary. Before you go on the sales, you have to give the gatekeeper their own share. That's what anecdotal research have shown. Because you cannot do that kind of, I just watched, while we were on break, I checked, part of the report of CDD, which is flagged by the Guardian newspaper on its online version, is that there is a banner headline, if you do a Google on the Guardian, that policemen were fighting over 100,000 naira that was given to them, that 10 of them were asked to share 100,000, and another person from a sister agency was given 15,000, which means that the person who gets 15,000 will get more than they. But why would a politician give you 100,000 and you take it? If you do, will you now stop his agent when he's giving money to voters? So this is why I say anecdotal evidence have shown that in incidences, and that's why it will be difficult to call, because those who are indulging in this thing knows that you cannot convict them. You can't easily get conviction around these incidences. And let me also share what INEC chairman told us at the last CSO quarterly meeting, that when we accuse the commission of not prosecuting electoral offenders as expected, that unlike election petitions that have timeline, electoral offenses does not have timeline. It can take 10 years. It can take 5 years. The law has not benchmarked, unlike if there is contest about a dispute over result of election, dispute over nomination of candidate, you know that you have 180 days at the court of first instance, which is the tribunal, then 60 days at the appellate courts. But in electoral offenses, it is taken to be a normal criminal offense, which does not have which is not time bound. And to make the matter worse, INEC officials are not empowered to make arrest. It is the police and other security agencies that makes arrest and investigate. Two powers: arrest, investigation. But who does the prosecution? It is INEC. So unless the police, who are now indicted as being complicit, as condoning incidents of vote buy, they are the one that will now pass the case file to INEC to take to court for prosecution.
Jide, we're still going to continue this conversation. I would like to take a moment off the 2024 Ondo State's governorship election and bring you this piece of breaking news, because the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has arrived in Abuja, the capital territory of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He is in the country on a state visit at the instance of President Bola Tinubu. He is the first Indian Prime Minister to visit the country since 2007, when Manmohan Singh came and established trade relations between Nigeria and India. It is expected that while the leader is in Abuja, there will be strategic ties between both countries, Nigeria and India, that would be signed to bolster international trade and cooperation between both countries. The Indian Prime Minister was received at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport by FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and the Minister of State. And of course, we expect more details to emerge from this state visit to Nigeria and how that will really promote trade relations between both countries. Let's quickly have a word or two on that. The Indian Prime Minister visiting the country. Let me start with David. The first Indian Prime Minister to visit Nigeria since 2007, And of course, they will be meeting President Bola Tinubu. It's state visits, and what are your expectations?
Well, our expectations is that there'll be conversations that would, walk around a lot of the policies and programs of government, that are creating platforms, for foreign direct investments. And Indians have always been amenable to investing in Nigeria. There are a lot of investments already that are owned by Indians in Nigeria. So this visit is quite auspicious, especially at a time like this, and it will boost confidence of other leaders around the world, that they actually would need to come around and see for themselves, not just to be listening to some of the things that have been peddled in local and foreign media about our country. So I think it's a good thing that the Indian Prime Minister is here. It's a mark of the hard work that the president have been doing in his shuttle diplomacy to attract foreign investments to the country.
Jide, the leader of the most populous country in the world, India, visiting the most populous country in Africa, Nigeria, and at a time when the world is tilting towards artificial intelligence, robotics, we're seeing neuroscience and a lot of information and communications technology. This surely will open newer pathways for the scientific and industrial revolution and innovation that the present administration is looking into, and how to really foster trades across all spheres of the economy.
Exactly. You should be the analyst on this, because you have actually put the issue in perspective. India is a technological giant. It's an industrial giant. The trade relations between Nigeria and India is very robust, dated back decades. And I'm yet to recollect any time in history where there is a diplomatic spat between Nigeria and India. It's always been cordial. I recall that there was a time that we used to have Indian teachers, even in Nigeria, taking us in sciences, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology. And quite a number of them, even in my secondary school days, we had Indian teachers. So it's not just in terms of factories and industries, or in terms of, and India is also, is a very influential member of the BRICS. Remember, recently Nigeria has a partnership status with the BRICS, which is one of the positives that has happened this year. And BRICS, meaning Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And Nigeria is one of the 13 that were given the partnership status, even though we are not fully there. But it shows that they believe in us to have allowed us to be on that status. So having a state visit by the Indian Prime Minister is auspicious, is salutary, it shows that, just like the Chinese, they need us as much as we need them, because it's not just here because we need any assistance from India. Rather, they are also looking, because of their population size, they are also looking for markets for their products. They are also looking for new investment opportunities. Even though India may be like 6 or 7 times our own population. But remember, they are not just producing for consumption. They also want to export and foreign exchange. And Nigeria, with over 200 million population, is a fertile ground for them to come and do business. And this administration has said it welcomes business opportunity, foreign direct investment in different areas, in terms of ICT, in areas of industrialization, even in areas of trade and investment, I won't say sports because I'm not sure.
I was actually going to come to that.
No, I will not put sport as part of, because India is not a very strong footballing nation.
Yes.
India does not, and Nigeria doesn't play baseball, basketball, and cricket. I mean, they are world champion in cricket. So we may not have much in terms of that, but be that as it may, there are 1,001 other opportunities that we could explore, even if it's to foster world peace, to join, because there are so many troubled, nations at war, Sudan, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Pakistan, and just like our own president went to Saudi Arabia to call for ceasefire in Palestine, just a couple of days back, it may also be part of the diplomatic shuttle to see how we can mobilize to call for world peace. So there are different directions to which one can interpret this. But I think in the coming days, particularly tomorrow, it will be clearer what its mission in Nigeria is. I would have expected a higher government official to be on the welcome, to welcome the PM to Nigeria, rather than having the Minister of FCT. Perhaps we have Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf.
The Minister of State Foreign Affairs was actually there as well.
Yeah, but Yusuf Tuga, or the Vice President, would not have been out of order if the President wasn't there. But for whatever is what, I don't know what may have warranted him not, the Vice President or the President not being there to personally welcome. It may not be an issue, but the most important thing is that it's very, it's something that is laudable and commendable to have at this point in time.
Well, David, before we round off this discussion of the visit of the Indian Prime Minister and go back to our primary focus, which is the Ondo State governorship election, how can the two countries advance their democratic values with this visit?
Oh, well, India is a very large democracy in itself.
It's the biggest democracy in the world.
Absolutely. Now, you see, just like any other country, they have their challenges around their own democracy too, and democratic countries would like to promote democracy in other countries, as a common value. So I'm thinking that there are lessons to be drawn, and then also that both sides can actually encourage each other. I don't want to look at it from the point of view that India has all knowledge and would be the ones to come and teach us how to run our democracy. We have seen what played out in more advanced democracies. All of us witnessed how the US elections played out and some of the factors that you never would have thought of, playing out. The possibilities of disputing election results even before the elections have happened. And then the outcomes, and the reactions after the election results, were announced and so on. These are things previously that you would associate only with African countries, but you see them playing out, in advanced democracies. So I think it's a mutual thing. There are lessons to be learned from both sides.
All right, let's move on our conversation now. We've had, if you're just tuning in, it's official now from the NTA that the Indian Prime Minister, I beg your pardon, there's quite some things there coming into my eardrums. It's official now that the Indian Prime Minister has arrived Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital territory, on a state visit at the instance of President Bola Tinubu. Of course, details of the state visit, you can always catch that live on the NTA. Now, let's go back to our 2024 Ondo State governorship election. And of course, David, I was going to ask you this particular question because when we interacted with Faith Wadishi, she spoke about one or two challenges that were witnessed in the course of the election today. There was that space for orientation and reorientation. Are we really doing enough in that space?
You see, I listened very carefully to Faith when she was talking. She made specific reference to low turnout of persons between the age of 18 and 35 and 30, 18 and 30. Now, that particular demography, accounts for over 60% of our national population. And she thinks that the reason why the low turnout was witnessed among this age demography perhaps was because of insufficient voter education. Well, I beg to differ. I think that our youths have become highly enlightened politically, and this is demonstrated even in how they lend their voice, in terms of debates around politics and the things that shape governance. I think one of the reasons perhaps why that low turnout was witnessed amongst this demography perhaps will be the fact that this age group at this particular period in time, a large chunk of them are in school, and perhaps did not leave their schools to come home and participate in this election exercise. I don't think that our youths between the ages of 18 and 30 are not politically conscious enough to know the significance of a gubernatorial election. At the National Orientation Agency, we are stepping up our sensitization platforms. We have created several new platforms, and we have become far more active in the current dispensation under the current leadership than used to be the case before now. We are on television, we're on channels, NTA, TVC, Arise, and all of these platforms. And we're in the communities. Recently, we were in every local government on the streets, in the markets, engaging with traditional rulers and other stakeholders across this country. This is evidential because a lot of it was on various media platforms.
Well, David, you've been able to tell us the roles and impacts that the National Orientation Agency is doing all round, and particularly in tackling some of these emerging threats in the country's electoral system. But let's have an in-depth look into some of the statistics that we have concerning the Ondo State's governorship election as it affects the outcomes and what we've seen so far. Okay. Now, preferably, I'd love to start with here. Preferably, to have an idea of how numbers are really shaping the outcome of the election. Because, oh yes, this is where I want to be. Because we really need to know, we all know the total number of permanent voters cards collected by local governments in Ondo State. Total of 2,053,061 people. But with what we've seen and heard from those on the field, we have this feeling that not all these numbers actually came out today to cast their ballot. Let's have a direct look into some specific areas around here, especially the largest in terms of the voter block. It's about this particular area. That is Akure South, with a total of 314,710. And that is quite massive. And just like Fito Adishi said in our conversation, that she moved around different local government areas where there were incidents of some of these things that we don't like to talk about in our electoral process and system, but unfortunately, this end up influencing the outcome. And these two local governments that are the riverine areas in Ilaje and Eseodu. Now, let me stick with Ajide on this one. With these outcomes and the statistics that we have, to what extent do we expect these figures to influence the outcomes?
Well, it all depends on the mobilization by the candidates and their political parties. Big numbers does not necessarily determine whether there will be massive turnout. Because people are disengaging from the electoral process. And this is not just limited to Nigeria.
True.
It's a global challenge, and people the researchers are talking about the democratic reversals. And people are not seeing sufficient dividends of democracy for them to want to participate. I recall that if you go by what happened on November 11, 2023 in Bayelsa, Southern Ijaw is said to have about 200,000 registered voters. But how many of that Southern Ijaw voters came out during the November 11, 2023 governorship election in that state. So Akure South may have 314,710. Ilaja may have 147,208. But the narrative I can shape from what is on the board there is that this, particularly the voter registration for Ilaje, would be to the advantage of the incumbent. Because Lucky Ayedatiwa is from Ilaje local government. Agbola Ajayi is from Eseodo local government. So if you look at 147,206 that are from Ilaje and 84,000 from Eseodo, it means that if there is sufficient voter mobilization, Lucky Ayedatiwa will have a significant, one is an incumbent, two is also from that local government, and three, the way primordial sentiments comes in when you want to vote. Omawani is our child. Let's support him. Let's back him. So it will work to his advantage. Akure South is the cosmopolitan part of the state, and there is a high level of political sophistication. So that also may, depending on what the turnout is, could also be to the advantage of the incumbent governor, given the fact that that's the seat of power, that is the capital of the state. So if you combine Akure South and Ilaje, that's almost over 400,000 votes out of total collection of 1.7 million. And that's just 2 out of 18 local governments. And when you had that of Akoko Southwest, which is 112,027, it depends, although that is to...
What will be your take on, or remember, Aketi emerged from here?
Not only Aketi is from Owo, the deputy to Ayedatiwa is also from Owo. Okay. You understand? That also becomes a factor. Because this is what people need to understand. The context, how people win and lose elections. The Ayedatiwa is very smart. Not actually Ayedatiwa per se, but the APC is smart enough to pick their candidates from where there is huge voting bloc. Ilaje comes maybe second or third in the overall number of registered voters.
We still have Odigbo.
Yeah, Odigbo is
on the west.
Now, what I do know for a fact is that Ayedatiwa is from Ilaje, Agbola is from Eseodo. Now, deputy to Agbola is from Idori. And yes. Where is Idori? Idori is just 91,000. Then compare that to Owo, where the deputy to Ayedatiwa comes from. You could see that if you are taking a demography of 4 local governments and you put them between the governorship candidate and the running mate, it favors APC more. You get what I'm trying to say? If you had 147,208 to 143,751 for the APC candidate and his running mate, and then compare that to 84,888 or something, and then add it to the one in 91,000, it's more like half of what the other candidates, although this would depend on turnout. None of the observers have been able to speak specifically to the turnout. It was just a guesstimation that it may fall lower than 30%. But whether it's 30%, whether it's 40%, one thing that we know for certain is that election is not compulsory in Nigeria, unlike Australia where it is mandatory. And people must be sufficiently motivated for them to want to participate. Aside from voter inducement, there are people who see election as their as something that is a franchise that they don't want to miss. Faith was speaking to something earlier on. 3 people, aged women, one 95, one 85, one in 80, and another maybe 70 or 80, that insisted that they were going to vote. And that is very instructive. If we have elderly people like that, who in spite of everything came out to exercise their franchise, I do hope that we'll have significant turnout at the end of the day.
Now, you talked about the elderly. Let's take a look at the fraction, because we talked about the role that different age groups have to play in this election. We spoke quite a bit about it yesterday, but based on newer reports that we're getting about the elderly wanting to do the right thing and set the perfect example for those coming after them. The elderly here are just account for 21.51%. And just like Faith rightly told us, that there were, according to what she said, based on what they observed on the field, that not much of the people in this group came out to vote. Now, these are the people who need the policies to shape the future, but how do you blame the system if you were not part of it, David?
You see, it goes to what I said earlier. This demography of between ages 18 to 35, as we speak, quite a good number of them are in school, you know, and perhaps may not have, you know, left school to come and participate in what is going on at the moment, understandably so, you know. So, and then if that is the case, then it is not surprising, because they account for 35.41%, as you see there.
So, and then this group as well.
Yes. So if this voter apathy that is being referred to in this election, if this contributes to it, then you can understand what's going on, you know. So I think it speaks to the timing, you know, of the election. I do not want to believe that this age group is not sufficiently politically conscious, you know, to know what is going on at the moment.
All right, let's go back to our earlier demographic that we were speaking about the other time on specifics, particularly the local government and the role that they all have to play in shaping the outcome of the result at the end of the day. You were talking about the political calculation, Jide, of this different local governments and the candidates of each of the political parties. But I want us to have an extended focus, because one of the early fears that we had was about having results come out from the riverine areas. And the 2 local governments in question here in particular is coming down to this area. Oh yes, Eseldo, oh, surely, I'm going to get it, yes. Now, Ilaje and Eseldo in particular, these 2 local governments, despite the challenge of being riverine areas, it was reported that results came in earlier than anticipated. What do we attribute this to?
What should we attribute it to?
Oh, yes.
Maybe one cannot be conclusive.
Yes.
But since depending on the arrangement that INEC makes, what I know historically is that this riverine area, they do what is called communal voting.
Okay.
Where the traditional ruler tells them, this is how we are voting, and people fall in line. Whether that can be established, it remains to be seen. Maybe observer reports would tell us what actually happened in those riverine areas, because what the bit of research output I've read shows that elections hardly hold in those riverine communities. In fact, there is a tale that in time past, the community leaders will come to the seashore, collect the voting materials, and ask the officials, when do you want this back? And then they go do the needful and bring it back for you, everything tidy. That was in time past, from what I learned, time past. Whether that bears is ugly as this time, only observers who are on ground can tell us, because I would have expected that that would be area where results should come late, given the fact that these are far-flung. From what I've learned, about 2-3 hours from the from the land. You travel by speedboat like 2-3 hours into the high seas to get to some of these local governments. So how come they now have, and it's not like they are just in one small island where everybody gathers. They are in disparate places, communities. So how that happens, maybe INEC will have been in a better position to tell us how results from Ilaje and Eseodo will be collated in a very smooth manner, that even places that are on the that are not riverine will still be grappling with their own results. But I'm yet to have an official answer to that, beyond the speculations that people in the riverine community do what they call communal voting. So whatever that means, communal voting, maybe that's what we have witnessed again, but we will know better by tomorrow.
Well, David, as someone who is involved in reaching out to people and changing their orientation and reorientation, in a difficult terrain as we have in Ilaje and Eseodo, being a riverine area, how can it be in terms of trying to reach out, logistics and the rest of getting them to do the right thing?
Well, let me first make some comments around the contributions that have come so far. Yeah. I think that we shouldn't take credit away from INEC.
All right.
You know, in this particular election, from some of the reports we have gotten and the feedbacks we're getting from the field, it would appear that INEC upped its game. That polling units were able to open on time. You know, that also reflected in the contributions we had from Faith on the ground, you know, in Ondo. So if polling units open at the right time, and then people come out to vote, then you would see these kind of outcomes, you know, that is raising eyebrows at the moment. Now, if you listen carefully, when the chief press secretary to the INEC chairman was speaking earlier in the day, he said that as at 8 p.m. thereabouts today, over 90% of polling unit results had been uploaded on the IREF, on the INEC viewing portal. Now, what that tells you is that most polling units were able to start on time. Because if that didn't happen, then this high percentage of result uploads would not have been seen. So I think we shouldn't take credit completely away from INEC. In this particular election, it would appear that they have actually improved in terms of kicking off at the right time. And if you kick off at the right time, then the election will end at the right time and you would be able to send results.
All right, Judy, let's take a look at another interesting demography here, because in our conversation earlier, it was made mention that perhaps the identity and the character of the two leading aspirants for the government house, it has really shaped the turnout of people, and perhaps the reason why we're having reduced violence as anticipated, you know, in the build-up to the election, when compared to years ago, when the characters of those aspiring for political office always really shaped the nature of violence that we have. Let's take a look at, starting from here, and taking a look at the two leading political parties that we expect are already in the race that we have at the moment, because there's no way we want to talk about it that we would not come down to look at the APC candidates. And of course here, with Lucky Aiyedatiwa and Adelani Olaide Owolabi, the two of them, tell us what we need to know, being their character and how it has really shaped perhaps the lowest level of violence against what was anticipated.
Well, it's a build-up. People acquire political culture over time. The impression people had earlier on was that Ondo is a very volatile, politically volatile environment, but what people will not tell you is that they also have a high level of political sophistication.
True.
They are very politically aware. The only thing they don't like is being taken for granted. You cannot steal their vote and get away with it. So if what they cast I mean, you can't read successfully in Ondo without paying for it. When PDP tried it in 2007, yes, in 2007 governorship election, Mimiko was able to wrestle his electoral mandate from the court. It wasn't like what happened in 1983 when it resulted to physical violence. The battle was fought and won in the courts in the last the hotly disputed governorship election of 2007. And that's why, you know, the battle of two Sheguns, two Oluseguns, Olusegun Agagu, then the incumbent governor, and Olusegun Mimiko. Agagu was from Ondo South, then Okitipupa area of Ondo, and Mimiko was from Ondo Central, that's Ondo Town. And it resulted into long litigations, but eventually Mimiko was able to rest. So coming to Adedatiwa and Adelani, you know, the master stroke is that, one, they are both incumbent. Two, they are also building on the legacy of Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. I think it was a master stroke for Ayedatiwa or the APC, I don't know who to give the credit, to have chosen the deputy to Ayedatiwa from Owo. You understand? Because they wanted to retain that political base. Yeah. And Owo is also the hometown of Ajasin, of the Second Republic, who is highly revered. In fact, the two of them that have become governor from Ondo, from Owo, are Ajasin and Akeredolu at different times. So the master stroke was, apart from being incumbent, when Ayedatiwa became the substantive governor, in looking for a running mate, because he moved up the ladder. He was the deputy, became acting, then became substantive. In choosing a new deputy governor, they decided to choose from Owo. And you could see the voting population of Owo. So it's going to work in their favor from the look of things. Even when news report came out yesterday, that, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, that the family of Akeredolu has endorsed the SDP candidate. The family came out to say, look, it's just one of us, in fact, the youngest member of the Akeredolu family, who have expressed his own personal preference for the SDP candidate, that the family have not endorsed the SDP. So the long and short of it is that they are building on the legacy of Aketi and having somebody from Owo, also picking their candidate from Ilaje that has that huge voting population, helps the cause of APC in my own thought.
Now, David, as we round off our analysis of some of these interesting statistics that we have, we heard what we spoke with Arms Free the other time. We've spoken with Faith Wadishi. We've spoken with Temilade as well. They mentioned the instance of some procedures that tried to cast a dark shadow, you know, over the election today, especially in, she made mention of Akure, Akoko Northeast, I guess, and Akure South, or thereabouts, where there were instances of these things that were recorded. Now, as someone who is really into changing perception and narratives, how do we get people who have come of age, who is believed should know the difference between what is right and what is wrong, to consistently do the right thing and set a perfect example for those coming after them?
You know, it's a long haul, Ayo. This is not going to be like a short.
It's not a sprint.
It's not a sprint, you know.
It's a marathon.
Sensitization around the issues of vote buying and vote selling must just continue. You know, it must continue. It's not something that we can make go away in a very short period. And the causative factors are many. Some of the things that he referred to, for instance, the rising cost of living, with the social tensions created by that. Also the fact that there's a disconnect, like he said, in the political process by people who feel disillusioned and think that the way things are playing out now, in many places, politicians are really not delivering on promises, and the fact that politicians who get victory largely run away from the electorate. It becomes very difficult to connect with them after elections have been won. So the only time that the electorate get close contact with these politicians is during elections, such as this. So it's a long haul, and we're not relenting. Like I told you, we've established several new engagement platforms, with people, especially at the grassroots across this country. We're going to continue to preach. Ours is like the job of a preacher and a missionary. You don't get weary. Not everybody will get converted at the same time, but you must continue to ensure that people hear the message. And bit by bit, you will get people to understand the implications, the negative implications of these things that they are doing.
Now, Jide, speak more to some of these figures that we have on the screen right now about the early permutations, because in the intro we talked about strategists already postulating what they await the official pronouncement by INEC. Based on some of these figures that we have, and of course the emergence of the two leading political parties and their candidates, while we would not like to dwell on which side or which side the tide would swing at the end of the day, some of these figures you've actually highlighted, yes, the figures might not really turn out to be what it's expected to be, but like they say in politics, it's always a game of numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a game of numbers, but sincerely speaking, even though I've not seen any official result, the odds favor the incumbents in this race. Let me put it this way. Majority of the members of the Ondo State House of Assembly are from the ruling party. Majority of the senators, I don't even know whether there's any senator from the opposition from the ruling party. Majority of House of Reps members, they have 9. I think 8 belongs to the APC. And so when you put all of this together, and they are spread across all of this. Remember, Olubunmi Tuju-Ojo is from the Akoko area.
As Minister of Interior.
A Minister of Interior. And when there was a by-election to elect a replacement to him after he resigned to take on the ministerial appointment, APC won that seat back, in Akoko area. And that's also where Professor Boroface of APC, Ajayi Boroface represented for many years. So, taking it away from Ayedatiwa as a governor who is contesting, you also will look at the solidarity from the other elected officials within the state. So if your party has majority in the State House of Assembly, has majority in the House of Reps, has majority in the Senate, so of course, I'm not sure whether they have even conducted local government elections, but in the event that they have not conducted local government elections, even those statistics I've given you could be a positive factor that could aid. But it remains to be seen. Whatever we say here is immaterial. Whoever has won will have known by now, given the fact that INEC had already posted 97% of the results online. On IREF. And on IREF. And we do know for a fact that the dominant parties usually set up their own parallel, their own situation room, where they also do their own computation. So even though there may not have been official result announced, whoever has won will have known by now whether they have coasted on to victory, whoever has lost will have known, or whether the election is inconclusive. It will have been clear to those of them who participated. But what I found worrisome, which I need to flag, is the idea of parties abandoning their own ambition to endorse another candidate on the eve of election. It's a bad practice, and I think NOA should speak against it. 3 parties allegedly yesterday, endorsed the candidate of APC. Why should you do that? The law is very clear. If you want to withdraw from the race, you do that 90 days to election. So of what, if you want your name or the name of your party to be on the ballot paper, which has long been printed, on the eve of election, you are now saying, my supporters go and vote for this other candidate. It happened in Edo. 5 political parties, 5 days to the election, endorsed the candidate of the ruling party. And where does that leave us? That's number one. Number 2 thing, which I think I also need to flag with this opportunity, is election dispute resolution. We heard that INEC has suggested they have to upload name of another person for one of the parties because of Court of Appeal decision. Barely 48 hours to election. When should that happen? Whoever has his name uploaded as at yesterday, did the person campaign? Could he have campaigned when there is litigation going on? I think this is why there should be timeline. And I know that there are timelines for pre-election matters. If there are, was that strictly abided with? INEC gave minimum of 360 days notice of this poll. And the party primaries were conducted early in the year. So how come we now have court deciding who is the authentic candidate of a party? And it's not just one party. It happened to about 3 parties where, INEC had to be changing based on court decisions. These are nuts and bolts of what we need to tidy up, because it impacts on even voter education, it impacts on voter turnout. If somebody has been campaigning for, and the campaign period is 150 days, mark it, 5 months, someone has been campaigning only for that person to be said not to be the authentic candidate of the party. How do you think his followers will react? Would they still go ahead and vote for his opponent who has now upstaging? So that will also generate, cause low voter turnout. I'm just flagging that, even though it doesn't have a direct link to the question you have asked. But speaking to statistics, what this tells us is that in choosing your candidate, you need to be strategic. From the word go, look at what happened in Edo. The dominant parties agreed that it's time for power shift. And what did they do? They picked their candidate from Edo Central. Ed Otil is an Edo Central person that won. Because the Edo Central people have said, we are being marginalized. And as I pointed out in my column in the Punch on Wednesday, I did say that power shift arrangement has also been institutionalized in Ondo. That in 25 years, you have had 2 persons from Ondo North being the governor. That's Adebayo Adefarati and Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. Ondo Central has produced Mimiko for 8 years. Ondo Central, yes, Ondo Central has produced Mimiko. Now Ondo South has produced first Olusegun Agagu, and it has produced Ayedatiwa too. Whether Ayedatiwa will now be able to retain his seat is in the act of the electorate. We will know maybe by tomorrow. Is it tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, in the next few hours.
Later today.
We will know later today.
At the coalition center now.
whoever wins. So
Well,
that's just
but before we round off this segment, there's one particular statistics I want us to take a look at because we've been talking about the need to involve and include everyone that is eligible to vote. And that is the number of registered voters captured by this. Now, not a significant number, but the fact that they were incorporated and involved in the process, I think it speaks volumes, despite some of the challenges that some of the observers on ground have noticed that they were put through in terms of maybe Braille and maybe a sign language interpreter to help those who have hearing impairments. But what do you say about this?
Well, not much information has come out from the field, as to how voting by PWDs turned out. And it will be interesting to interrogate that fact, whether, as a matter of fact, in every polling unit, we had relevant devices that respond to the needs of PWDs in this place. That would also reflect on the quality of preparedness of INEC for this election, and also signpost what to expect in future elections. So I think that statistic bears some deeper level of interrogation.
Judy, some would say with 1,782 that the numbers are actually higher than this, but maybe only those with the courage and encouragement, and perhaps those who got the information decided to come out.
Yes, this speaks to inclusion, political inclusion. And what I've heard from Young Africa is that in some of the polling units, they did see assistive devices for this as people with special needs. While they acknowledge that there are magnifying glasses in some places, there are braille guides in some places. INEC had to work on statistics of. I agree with you. It may well be well over 1,782 persons with disability in Ondo State. I know that for sure. The number will be much higher. And even 18 and above will be way, way higher. But you see, one thing we must not forget is that election is not compulsory. No matter what, if you choose not to participate, nobody will force you. And people, over 200,000 people didn't go to collect their PVC. Only 85% or thereabouts collected their PVC. So it could also be among these people who could not mobilize to go and collect their PVC. But I should appreciate INEC for the inclusion, the sense of inclusion, that they even have these statistics to go by. This may be paltry, this may not be significant, but at least they have something to work on. And I believe that as the new rounds of continuous voter registration exercise takes place ahead of 2027, the number will rise from what it is right now.
All right, interesting conversation ongoing here in our Abuja studio for the 2024 Ondo State's governorship election. We'll go for a break, and when we return, we shall be rounding off our conversation. As of course, we already know that collation is ongoing in Akure, which is the State Collation Center, as fingers are crossed. And of course, the political gladiators can only wait while the waiting game is ongoing. So let's go for a break. We'll be right back.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, we turn dark into light, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Education is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together lift the Nigeria. I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and that God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
Okay, you're welcome back from that break, and it's still the special broadcast for the 2024 Ondo State governorship election on the Nigerian Television Authority. Of course, we're live here in the Federal Capital Territory. David Koji with the National Orientation Agency, and Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, are still with me in the studio. We've been talking about different issues that have come up so far from the election as the waiting game starts now for the official pronouncement by the Independent National Electoral Commission. But as a round of our conversation here in the studio, David, I want you to talk about the crucial role that INEC has really played so far. INEC, for many years, was the subject of query, ridicule, attack. In as much as they are not where they want to be, but they are not as bad as they used to be, are they?
Well, the fact is this. The Nigerian public is very demanding. The politicians have their own way of playing politics. Elections are never fair unless I win. If I don't win, then there must be a challenge with the way the process played out. So for INEC, it's head or tail, you lose. So we must look at it from that point of view. That's not to take anything away from the fact that there are areas in which INEC ought to improve. What we have seen play out in Ondo is significant improvement to the kind of feedbacks that we were hearing from the Edo elections, And incrementally over the years, INEC has indeed improved. Their task is not a small one. It's huge. Politicians have their ways. They hardly ever play by the rules. This is a fact that is well known. And so for INEC to manage that entire ecosystem, you don't expect that you will get perfection of any kind. All the stakeholders around the election process have roles to play. I did hear when Faith made reference to the need for National Orientation Agency to up their game in terms of voter education. The way the election ecosystem is configured right now, it puts the resources for voter education in the hands of INEC, not in the hands of National Orientation Agency. You know, we're working towards seeing that something is done about that, because the public knows that the agency of government that is set up for the sole purpose of sensitization and orientation on diverse areas that government is doing things, and election is one, you know, of those areas, is the National Orientation Agency. We have the structure, we have the personnel, we have the messaging platforms and all of that, you know. So we're engaging with INEC. In terms of what played out in Ondo, I would have loved to see a greater level of collaboration between INEC and us at the National Orientation Agency in the area of voter education. If that had happened, it would have added significant value, you know, to pre-election awareness creation, and perhaps that would have impacted more significantly on voter turnout, you know, and on a reduction in the incidence of vote buying, you know, and selling. So I would advocate that a greater level of collaboration happens between INEC and us at the National Orientation Agency, and that government prioritizes funding the National Orientation Agency for the specific purpose of voter education.
Judy, let's take a look at this particular area that we spoke about when we went on break for the weekend file, about the need to get all stakeholders to be on the same page. In as much as the umpire, based on reports that we have from those on the ground in Ondo State, are saying that the umpire is trying to get things better, but some other players seem to be reluctant to change and move forward to make the system better.
But that's to be expected. The beneficiary of a flawed system will never want anything better to happen. And the political class are guilty in this regard. What my brother said is true about the need for better collaboration between NOA and INEC. But funding could come from international donor agency to NOA, even if government is not giving you sufficient funding. And I believe that NOA should look at that possibility of reaching out to different embassies, different agencies, different donors, like European Union, UNDP, USAID, to be able to complement INEC. Because look at what civil society is also bringing to the table. You heard what my colleagues who deployed to the field, what they said. If there was no funding for them, Faith said she's been in Akure since Monday. And that is not just one trip that she has made, several trips over the months. There are those who deploy for pre-election observation, some long-term observer for like 6 months, some 3 months. All of these are paid for by the donor community, by the development partners. And I think NOA can also explore that opportunity to get improved funding for itself, given the fact that government funding is little. Given variety of issues, they also need to engage. Because after election, what's next? There are so many other issues to engage. Issues of public health, issues of governance, issues around anti-corruption and all of that. So all of this is at the table of... so the framers of the law who may not have put voter education as part of your schedule may have thought that you have too many on your plate. And it's not even out of place for INEC to also collaborate directly. And I believe that has happened in time past. Whether it still succeeds, I don't know. The issue I think needs to be seriously flagged is why are the political parties not embracing voter education and rather prefer to engage in vote buying? That's the question. The campaigns they claim to do is more of entertainment. They hire DJs or bring in live bands who does, for most times, they dance, they do all the entertainment, and very limited time is devoted to even addressing critical issues of governance. And you see how many of them, how they shy away from debate, public debate, because again, that is also not mandatory. So if politicians will spend a fraction, let's even say 20% of what they spend to engage in vote buying, if they spend it on voter education, there will be significant turnout of vote.
Quick one, Jide. We're having live feeds now from the State Collation Center, and of course, the NTA is there, and we expect possibly something to come out over the next few minutes, or if there won't be, surely we'll be here to let you know. But Jide, this is obviously a sign of progression, or rather, let me have David's thoughts on this right now, to let you know that truly INEC means business. If all things based on the calculation and what was reported on their website are to be taken to the bank, the result, the coalition should start anytime soon.
Yeah, INEC is fulfilling its promises as far as this election is concerned, and I think it's a cause to commend them, just as well as we criticize them when things go wrong. Yeah, so we have a balanced view. Speaking to the issue of voter education is a very critical element of the election process. This we recognize fully. When Faith spoke earlier on and referred to the low turnout for ages 18 to 30 and was ascribing it to deficit sensitization, you know I disagreed with that. Civil society, like Jide said, do tremendous work in the area of voter education. It would be nice to see more coming from the political parties who are the beneficiaries, you know, of this voter education. But what you see coming from the political parties largely is a solicitation for votes, not necessarily voter education. You know, I would like to see political parties sensitizing their followers against election violence, against vote buying.
You want them to see themselves in the...
But that's what they should be doing, actually, because they are the main beneficiaries of the entire election process, you know. So they should be interested in bringing some hygiene into the process so that the outcomes are credible enough to be accepted.
Maybe you want to also advise them to speak to disinformation and misinformation, which they are the purveyors.
That is it.
They are the purveyors of all of these malaises.
I heard that you spoke with Arms-Free Ajanaku,
yes.
you know, earlier in the day, and I'm hoping that he analyzed the information disorder ecosystem around this particular election, which started very early. You know, some videos that were fact-checked and later found to be fake were flying around of the APC candidates somewhere in the US, you know, having some very, very untoward encounters with some, you know, females in that place, and it turned out not to be true. So it shows you the low depth to which politicians are sinking, you know, and then using the tools of technology to seemingly cut advantages to themselves, you know. And then what that brings to question is, are they doing this for the interest of the people that will be governed, or for their own selfish interest? And then in doing these deceitful things, what are they teaching the younger generation? That you should win by all means, applying foul and fair, you know, measures and all of that. So I think there's a lot that political parties also need to do they have not come to the recognition of this fact. You know, they think that voter education should be left solely to civil society, INEC, and National Orientation Agency. You know, so it would be nice to see them participating in the core aspects, you know, of voter education. We had leveraged support from UNDP in the past, you know, and that took us around the country. I led that effort personally, you know, around, I think it was 2015 or thereabouts, you know, around the country. And the message we were taking to stakeholders is that voter education and voter participation should not end at election. You know, that you have civic responsibility to keep engaging the governance process to ensure that it brings out the best. You know, and that if you abdicate after election, then you would not get the best of outcomes. You know, good outcomes come as a result of monitoring, evaluation, you know, feedback, engagement, and all of that. And so we're teaching them even how to engage. At the moment, the thinking is that engagement is effective only when you protest. No. You know, in fact, protest delays expected outcomes because it creates a situation of conflict, you know, between parties. But if the normal processes of engaging with government, engaging with the governance processes, know which stakeholders, which pressure points, you know, to put pressure on to get your outcomes. Once this knowledge is pervasive, then from local government to state to federal, people know how to pressure in order to get their expected outcomes. You know, you see the depth of work that people like Jide do, you know, on communication platforms like this, you know, and all of that. All of this contribute to citizens' engagement with the governance process. So we want to see more of this, you know, actually happening.
Talking about sanitation or sanitizing the electoral process and system, you talked about those who are benefiting from a failed system would never want to change, but we cannot continue like this. Can we?
Of course not.
Yeah, please.
Of course not. And that's why the citizens must rise to the occasion and demand for change. I laughed when I was on another media platform and they were saying National Assembly members are in Ondo State for oversight of the election to know areas that needs reform. And I said, do they have to come on oversight during the electoral election to know when there are tons of memoranda that have been submitted, when they themselves have participated in the election and they know what they do, what they did rather, to get their seats. And so if the politician will stop to engage in vote buying, stop mobilizing talks to disrupt the electoral process, stop the disinformation and misinformation of the political ecosystem, are we not going to have better elections? I'm glad when Alfred talked about reduction in disinformation. I think it reported about 12 or 13 altogether, compared to Edo, where they have over 60 incidences of misinformation and disinformation, if I heard him right when he made his submission. And that's a significant improvement that it may be reducing, and we should just not have it in our system. Because this whole idea of demonizing, using technology, deepfakes, and all manner of disinformation on the social media platforms in order to gain political advantage is unhealthy and is toxic for our ecosystem. But all hands have to be on deck, and that's why it should not be left to civil society or INEC or NOA. Every one of us who understands what it takes should also be involved. Because this, as you know, this is about leadership recruitment exercise. If we understand that whoever we recruited to be in Alagbaka government house will most likely be there for another 4 years, barring death or any other unforeseen circumstance. So what should be at the back of our minds is that, will we be able to tolerate this person for another 4 years? Yes, there are provisions for impeachment, but how many governors have ever been impeached? Say for death, you don't even have anyone who will resign voluntarily, unlike in other climes where people will be forced to resign. In Nigeria, it's when you even call for resignation that they grow more wings and become very tyrannical. So it's only death that, there is a proverb, Yoruba proverb that speaks to that, that it's only death that could remove the skin of an animal. so the same way, it's only death that will unseat a governor that will empower through crooked means or through fair means. And, that's why it's very important that citizens must also take on the challenge. And there are many avenues. Maybe you are watching me and you are saying, how do I get involved? I have been involved 34 years in media advocacy around governance issues. I wasn't paid. I've never been, I've never had my pay, as a media advocate in the real sense of it. But I took it upon myself that this will be my own corporate social responsibility. I started engaging, writing letter to editor in 1990. From writing letter to the editor in Punch, in Daily Sketch, or the Funk Daily Sketch in Ibadan, moved to other media platforms, and then, before I branched out to the broadcast stations, both TV and radio. And that's another, that platform is still there, a veritable platform for youth, for Nigerians as citizens to engage. You can phone in on a live program. You do a number of phoning programs like Tuesday Live. You take people's calls. I've been on Tuesday Live when people call. Even 12 midnight, 12:30, people will call from different parts of the country. It tells you how they are involved, how concerned they are about the issue under discussion. Yeah. Then the social media was not there when I started my own media advocacy. Today, you have plethora of social media platforms to engage. There are some celebs that have millions of followers on their Instagram. Just imagine if they are also tweeting or posting about the need for electoral integrity, about the need for accountability in the electoral process, calling out, politicians who engage in vote buying, naming and shaming. That will help to sanitize the ecosystem. I don't know if you are getting me. So it's not just leaving it to NOA, leaving it to INEC, leaving it to civil society. You can do a lot as individual. If you are an influencer in your own sphere, rather than just doing skits to make money and make people laugh without any sense of direction, beyond the mercantilist and pecuniary benefits that you can draw. You can actually specialize in making political skits. You understand? Look at how Kensarua used the media to project the environmental degradation of his Ogoni people. It was like a one-man riot squad. It was on NTA that he became very popular. Many people didn't even know that he authored books. But using Bassey and Company that he initiated then, he was able to use that Bassey and Company to draw attention to the economic, environmental justice that he wanted for his people through drama, through television drama. And now the platforms have multiplied. Like I said, on Instagram, on YouTube, you can do 2-minute skits, meaningful political enlightenment skits that will make people to be gingered to even know what to do. So I think that would be my own icing on the cake, that beyond institutions, we as individuals, if you are aware, if you are not aware, the Temilade, what's the name of that lady from Akwe, said INEC trained them.
Yes.
INEC trained them and deployed them to local government different from where they come from. And she said she spent 2 weeks in Akoko area of Ondo State to go and be doing voter education for people in rural communities, even though she's from Ifedore. And that is just it. If you are an influencer, you can request from NOA, you can request from INE. Do you have any IEC materials that, so that you are properly guided? And then you can do your skits. People will still like, they will still share, they will still comment. You can make satire, political satire, you know, and it will resonate, and it will prick the mind. You don't even need to do multi-million naira films any longer to draw attention to issues of politics or, you know, issues around political malaise or governance malaise. There are scripts. You know, Nigeria, if there is any research that speaks to it, Nigeria must be one of the leading countries where skit economy is thriving. 1 minute, 30 seconds skit, 1 minute. Look at how many skits Nigerians have done out of Batasa, of Equatorial Guinea.
There's a whole industry in that sector.
Are you not, you just something that doesn't even concern Nigeria. And different, different comedians have decided to make skits out of that. Just imagine if we are able to make similar skits, from using it to educate Nigerians about their political rights, about the need to shun voter education, to shun vote buying, the need to shun voter inducement. I recall that in the earlier elections, someone like Tubaba, the Two-Face Idibia, had released a single, "Don't Sell Your Vote." It was a 2-in-1 song that speaks against election violence and also vote buying or vote trading. And that's the kind of thing you can do, either through skits, through music, through comedy, through different media can be applied to also join the fray. Don't leave it to institutions like CSOs, like NOA, like INEC, or even the political parties. Office of the Citizen is the primary #1 office in every country.
As we round off our conversation here in the studio, I would like to take the closing remarks from David. We seem to be having some challenges establishing contact with the Coalition Center because of less activity there, but it's just enough reason to keep our fingers crossed as we await the news to break from there and trust the Nigerian Television Authority to always bring that to you first. But David, what are your concluding thoughts as a round of conversation?
I want to re-echo and amplify the point that Jide just finished making, that if we are going to get things right, every one of us need to put hands on deck. The point that Jide made concerning skit makers is very, very valid. Skit makers are already in the business of making skits. They need to reconsider their content, and to make their content more responsive to national situations. Like Jide said, they can still make these skits that teach lessons and valuable lessons that convey our national values and still make people laugh. So it's time to move from the mundane, and then to begin to make skits that are actually meaningful, that will create impact and aid national development as their contribution. At NOA, we have started engaging. We're engaging with Nollywood. We're engaging with the National Association of Musicians. We have engaged with the National Association of Skit Makers. We have also engaging with the National Association of Animators. Those who are doing cartoons. As a means of actually also sending messages that convey our value, our culture, and the things that we respect through cartoons. NOA has gotten Federal Executive Council approval towards the indigenization of cartoon content, at least up to 70%.
Oh, great.
And we have also started making cartoons. NTA is airing our Captain Excellence.
Excellent, yeah. Yes. Yes.
It's also on TVC, on channels, and on Arise TV and all of these platforms. Our purpose is to take the attention of our children away from these Western cartoons that just teach them about phantom heroes that have no basis in our values, our culture, and our national situations. You know, so all stakeholders must see Nigeria as their project. They must own it, you know, and contribute towards achieving that objective that will be beneficial for us all.
Sincerely, I wouldn't have asked for a better pairing in the studio for this this conversation on the Ondo State governorship election, because we've really delved into so many areas as it affects the electoral process, the democratic process, and everyday life for those involved in the election in Ondo State and those watching us from other parts of the country and anywhere around the world. It's on that note I'd like to thank Jide Ojo for his time. We had a part 1 session from 7:30 in the evening to 9, and then we came back at 10, and then we're rounding off now. Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst. I'd like to thank you for your time and your immense contribution to this discussion.
My pleasure.
It's also been very wonderful to have David Akoji with us in the studio. Is the Director, Special Duties and State Operations with the National Orientation. And guess what? In case you're just tuning in, you've missed quite a lot, because they've spoken about so many things in terms of content creation, which is the new platform in which many of those who are very, very tech savvy with their smartphones and the internet now make money. But there are better ways of changing the system, the narrative, our everyday life through content creation, and also make money and change the system. But you can easily reach out to them. Remember, David Akoji is with the National Orientation Agency, and Jide Ojo is everywhere. I'd like to thank you both again for your time.
Thank you very
He's
much.
everywhere. Because as we round off, we are not going to Diboko Sebe. I mean, you cut the slang just earlier. Yeah, so it's not about Diboko Sebe. Yeah, so while we try to change the narrative, I'd like to thank you specially again for your time as we await the official announcement by the Benin National Electoral Commission. Let's thank you also for your time out there, for sticking with us here in the Nigerian Television Authority, and of course the entire production crew in the Abuja studio here and also in Akure, Ondo State. It's been a wonderful job. On behalf of everyone involved, I'm Ayodeji Makinde. This is the Nigerian Television Authority. Remember, the sun will shine again on Sunday on Ondo State, where possibly the winner will be announced. Bye-bye.